All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 are brought to us, of course, by the official beer of the program. That's Johnny Cuba. Go to johnnycuba.us. Use the Johnny locator. You can find the nearest location to you. European roots with a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Make sure you always drink responsibly, and don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. So the Dolphin fan, not very tranquilo today, as you wake up. We have Marcel Louis-Jacques, Miami Dolphins, ESPN NFL Nation reporter joining us here. Marcel, good to see you, man. And the Dolphin fan, like myself, woke up this morning. You got the report that the Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey have agreed to explore a trade. A, how surprising is this? And B, if they've agreed to explore a trade, I mean, is that the same thing as, yeah, they're going to make a trade?
I don't know that it's a guarantee that he gets traded. I think mostly because it's going to be a little hard to find somebody, I think, to take on that contract or who's willing to take on that contract. I think it's a pretty specific scenario that can stomach something like that. I think it's something that, from what I've been hearing, has been brewing for a little bit. Uh, while his play did taper off a little bit last season, I still think he is by and far. It's not even I think it's not even an opinion. He is far and away the best cornerback on this roster. So for the Dolphins to be willing to move on from him when they are already looking for a starter opposite of him means that things have gotten to a point where they both sides kind of see it as untenable. If they do move on from him, I think that it makes it pretty clear what their top need in the draft there at 13 is. I think that cornerback was already in the cards. And if they move on, if they're able to move on from Jalen Ramsey before the draft next week, I think it's almost you can lock it in. Go to Vegas, go guarantee that they are taking a defensive back there at 13. But it is a almost an admission of failure though to start even looking at trades after 2 years, because this was part of the grand scheme, the grand plan, right? Like post tank, you loaded this roster up with all pro talent and big names and superstar talent, and it just hasn't come together. It has not resulted in anything of real significance, of real value. And now here you are. It's not the all pro I think a lot of Dolphins fans thought would be in trade conversations right now, but it is something that is happening as we speak.
Well, and to that extent, to me, it's an admission that this team is not in a place to contend for a championship right now. So you trade away Jalen Ramsey before the draft so you can get a draft pick and start that whole process of getting of adjusting, retooling, rebuilding, however you want to look at it. But trading away Jalen Ramsey right now, that to me is the team telling you we are not a contender.
Yeah, and that's where this entire process comes off as baffling, as like you retained Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel. If you're seeing right, you retained your GM and head coach, but you also said you're not happy with the status quo, so something needs to change. And now you're shedding salary, you're trading your best players because what like it comes off as a rebuild, as a, I don't want to say a tank, but like it comes off as a rebuild. Like if you're restructuring Bradley Chubb and Calais Campbell, Teron Armstead are gone, and you trade Jalen Ramsey without any real successor in line, like it comes off as either is one of two things: either you are rebuilding or you view this as addition by subtraction, a la the Bills and Stephon Diggs last season. Like I don't know if that's the case, because there's just legitimately there is not starting caliber talent on in that cornerbacks room right now. Respectfully, like these are unproven guys, and slot corner in as far as Kader Kohu goes, I don't think he's an outside corner right now. But you're looking at legitimately a rookie, and or Ethan Bonner or Artie Burns or Cam Smith there at outside corner in a division with Josh Allen. You're not contending this year. Like there's still work to be done. Like, and I'm not gonna sit here. I don't want to sit here and like say the sky is falling. This is the final. This is it. It's still April. Season doesn't start until September. A lot can change. A lot can happen. I typically like to see the full thing play out, like the full plan reveal itself before I develop an opinion. But I will say it's a tough starting point. I will say I think it's safe to say this is they've got their work cut out for them if they do trade Jalen Ramsey. But I think it's no shock that at the end of last season, you had the real leaders of this team, the Jonnu Smiths, the Zach Sealers, even Mike McDaniel came out and said it, that there is an issue with accountability on this team, and had hinted at a need for a change in player driven leadership and a change in accountability on that in that locker room. So who knows, maybe this is a move that they see as necessary in order to start establishing a new culture here.
What do you think they hope to get for Jalen Ramsey?
You're looking at late day two at best, right? Because you mean look what you traded for him when he was still, on the tail end of his prime. You traded a third round pick and a backup tight end
Mm.
for him. You're not even going to get that at this point because he's too expensive and he's 2-3 years older than that. So if you can get a round 5 pick for him, then by all means,
Wow.
like go do it. Round 5, maybe you can get a fourth rounder, but like you're not getting the same kind of compensation that like the Rams paid for him. You're not getting the same compensation that even the Dolphins paid for him at this point. You can't. Yeah,
Do
right.
we
Like logically, you can't. It doesn't make sense. So I think you're looking at it, late day two pick, at best there.
do we know what the salary cap ramifications are when they trade him?
I believe since they paid, I think it's 4 million, 5 million of his 25-ish guaranteed. Like the other team would be on the hook for 20 plus there. So it saves you money, but you also haven't been spending it. So I guess they're trying to ensure some flexibility in the coming seasons, in the 2026 off season, especially as Tua's extension kicks in now. Like, but it is like I said before, it's kind of an admission of failure of what this mini window represented, which was that star power driven talent, talent driven roster, excuse me, could lead you to some playoff wins instead of doing things the natural way in the NFL, which is to draft, develop, and resign. It's not necessarily a formula that they've been following. Granted, they only had 8 draft picks in 2022 or was it 22 and 23, but 8 draft picks combined. But it's because you kept trading for big name talent.
Mm-hmm.
You kept
Yep.
bringing guys in that aren't homegrown and making them the highest paid players on the team. That's a tough strategy to follow. I had a GM tell me years ago, when I was picking his brain about like how do you build a team. He said like one of the biggest things that scares him the most is adding a guy and making him your highest paid player or one of your highest paid players because you don't know him, you don't know his work ethic, you don't know how he responds to money, you don't know how the team is going to respond to seeing somebody that didn't come up with them
Right.
get paid more than them. And
Right.
you've done that time and time and time and time and time again here in Miami, and it's not. That's a dangerous way to build a team, and it worked out against some of the worst teams in the league. They put up awesome numbers. They hung 70 on the Broncos a couple years ago. That was really fun. We were there for that. Like, that was cool to watch. Objectively, not a fan of the team. We just saw how often do you see a team put up 70 in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. But you're not winning playoff games. You're not winning playoff games. You're not beating the teams that matter in this league. And now it's looking like okay, like they're ready to start building through the draft again. It is the process of it is just a little bit confusing because if your plan is to strip this down, then I'm you don't usually keep the GM and coach in place to do so. So this is probably a maybe vote of confidence from Steve Ross that like we believe we ownership. I believe in the decision makers in place more than I believe in the players that those decision makers put in this place. So it's just it's a convoluted formula down here in South Florida right now, Zach.
So I'm going to ask you. I'm going to a really easy question, which I'm sure a really difficult answer that every fan wants to know right now. You said it's an admission of failure. I agree. Why is Chris Greer still running the show?
It's tough to say. I'm not in that room to I'm not in that room to answer that definitively. It is something that Steve Ross is patient, I guess, with his GM. He's patient with his front office staff, more so than his head coaches. But Chris Greer, he has found some success in the draft. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he has had some hits over the past few years, not necessarily in the first round, although I think Chop Robinson might be his best first round pick. Uh, it might end up being his best first round pick. But he's found some success there in the second, third, fourth rounds. It, it's the it's the roster building outside of that that really has not clicked. And I feel like when we saw the statement that they were coming back, the idea among media, the idea among fan base was that, okay, this is your last shot, right? Like, this is his last chance. Like, you either make something shake with this team, with this roster, with this core, or you've got to go. But no, and there's this there's this thought, there's this belief that he puts whatever team together that his coach wants and that absolves him of XYZ. I'm not 100% sure that's the case. I think there's some truth to that, but I don't think any GM is going to fully take their opinion out of the equation. Like, it's not like he has no say in how this roster was built. But I think Stephen Ross, he likes the level of communication, top to bottom between himself, Tom, Brandon, Chris Greer, McDaniel, likes the working relationship. But then again, like, you're contradicting yourself if you're saying, like, I'm not accepting the status quo. Well, like, you are. Your
Yep.
action said that more
Yep.
so than your statement. So it's odd. I'll admit that it's odd. Like, I think Dolphins fans have a right to be scratching their head or frustrated. I also do think, from a reasonable perspective, like rational perspective, there's a lot of time before the start of the season. There's still a week before the biggest weekend of the offseason, right?
Hmm.
Like, the draft hasn't even happened yet. So, like, he's got a full allotment of picks for the first time in 3, 4, 5, whatever years. This is something that they've been planning toward. So I think, the fair thing to do is see, okay, like, how is this going to shake out? This department has done all the scouting, has done all the research. It's hard to just bring somebody new in, with that short of notice and reset your draft board on, an abbreviated timeline. But we've also seen a draft where it was hyped. They've been waiting for a long time. They've been prepping for a long time in that 2021 round.
Yep.
And, objectively, they made three picks that you can make an argument that there was a better player at each one of those picks. You can make an argument. I'm not saying that they picked the wrong guys, picked the right guy. I think there is an argument for all three picks that there is a better player on the board. So yeah, it is one of those where you can see both sides of the coin, where you want to let him do his job, but we have seen in the past where he has not done so successfully. So it's a tough situation, but I think that I think that it's just going to be hard to move. It's going to be hard to move Jalen Ramsey, but if they are willing to do so, they see it as addition by subtraction.
Lastly, here, Marcel, you're on your way to Chris Greer's media availability early this afternoon. If you had the first question and you only get one question, what's the question?
Oof, that is a that is a tough one because of the timeliness of this Jalen Ramsey news. I think you have to ask that. I think you have to ask that. But at the same time, what I want to know is, because it's beyond Jalen Ramsey, it's also Tyreek Hill, right?
Mhm.
I want to know if, given the events of the past 18 months off the field, is this somebody you feel comfortable attaching your livelihood to? Because that, like, I genuinely want to know, like,
Yeah.
is this somebody that you're worried about off the field? Because there's no, whether or not he did anything wrong, and obviously legally he didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't arrested, he wasn't charged with
Mhm.
anything. But it's one of those where it's like, why is it always you?
Yeah.
Why is it you're not the only famous rich athlete in this city?
Right.
And yet, if an athlete gets in trouble in Miami over the past 18 months, or makes an off-field headline over the 18 months, it's almost always Tyreek. So, like, why
Yep.
is it always him? Is this something that you guys feel comfortable with, especially after how last season played out and after last season ended? With, taking yourself out of the game and the comments to the reporters after the game. Like, is this somebody that you feel comfortable with? Like, I think it's reasonable to say this is your make or break year. So I think there's going to be some difficult questions there today, which is tough because I like Chris, man. Like, I think he's a good dude. Away from the GM, the decision making, and this and that. Like I've gotten to talk to him a few times. We've all gotten to talk to him. I don't know anybody that says like he's so standoffish, he's so bad, like he's mean, he's this and that. Like
Mhm.
he's genuinely a good dude, but that doesn't necessarily absolve you from
Yeah.
tough questions or criticism in doing your very public job. So it's going to be an interesting availability there today. I'm looking forward to it.
I would love to hear the answer to that Tyreek question. That's for sure. Marcel Louis-Jacques, ESPN NFL Nation Dolphins reporter. Excellent job. Thanks for joining us today, Marcel. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.